3, 2, 1, and we are live.
We are live.
No, there's no turning back now.
How long was this weekend to get to this exact point?
Well, I don't quite want to go into figures, but no, it's long enough for sure.
Yeah.
I think
We're here.
we are. Okay, high five. Boom. Okay, we're here. I think the last podcast I did was, a couple of years, yeah.
Toby in Thailand.
Yeah,
That's been a journey in itself.
it has. Lots of stuff has happened since then.
Yeah, and so
Around everywhere.
around everywhere.
Around the world.
I mean, I would love for your listeners to have a little bit more insight into your journey, because I have obviously had the blessing of being with you along the way and witnessed it firsthand. But for those who maybe
Yeah.
maybe they've met you, maybe they know you, maybe they don't, but I mean, no perfect. And I'll just kind of perfect starting point and really diving into a little bit more under the hood.
Obviously, people can sort of play out that we haven't. We've got nothing planned. We've got no script with this. We're just sort of freestyling, and which is fun, which is cool,
Having fun.
and it's open, and we'll see where it goes.
And that's it, isn't it? It's what we love. Open expression.
Yeah.
So lay the floor.
Where do you start with a question like that?
Well, I don't know where feels comfortable for you to begin. I mean, we've gone on a journey, quite a massive journey, and I guess maybe what was like that triggering or that seed that just initiated you to actually go on the journey?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, what a question. I feel like it's sort of been building, over the years. I don't know if I can put it down to one specific moment, but definitely moments throughout, the last 34 years where it's sort of built up. And built as in, it's journey. It's a journey itself, isn't it? It's life. It's like things happen and you have to redirect and recourse and figure things out, and then
Okay, now I'm going to deep in that.
yeah.
What is your fucking moment in life?
The funny moment.
Like, I want to, of course, I totally get there's like many initiations along the path, but what one comes to mind where you just tell, like, I can't keep living this way, or this doesn't feel good, something needs to change?
You know what? I always and it comes up a lot for me in my journey. But I remember at high school, and we've talked about this a lot over the years. And friends that are close to me will know about it as well. But I was at high school, and for those that don't know, I went to boarding school and got shipped to boarding school. Yeah, sent away to a place called Palms North in the middle of nowhere. But anyway, I was pretty. Come from a really strong Maori home, pretty traditional, pretty sort of quite firm household, big family. And just there was lots going on, just wasn't settling in schools that we moved around a lot growing up. And then my parents made a decision to send me to boarding school, which was a big change and a big move, going from a place that was coming from a place that was very different to where I was going. So straight away in the deep end, and had to sort of learn to adapt to a new environment and find my way, stand on my own 2 feet. But back to your question, is there was a moment I was pretty comfortable. When you're a kid, you for me personally, my journey was trying to find a way to fit in and make sense of everything, and sort of work out my place. And at that point, in the first couple of years that I was there, it was a real challenge. There was lots of challenges, and but at the same time, I'd never been pushed in the way that I was probably needing to be pushed. And one of the experiences that comes up a lot for me is I trialled for an under 15 Colts rugby team at school, and up to that point, I was sort of pretty comfortable. I was always the biggest guy around normally, so I'd kind of just walked into any team that I had played for. I wasn't serious about rugby at the time. I sort of I thought it was a cool thing to do, loved watching it, but I hadn't given my all and didn't ponder or consider the possibility of going on and playing at a higher level. So it was my second year of high school, and I went and trialled for this team, and the coach at the time was a really good mentor, a really good, close friend of mine, who was also a hostel master of our boarding hostel. And so I, in my mind, I was sort of thinking, I don't have to train, I don't have to prepare, I don't have to, I've never failed. I've never not made a team in the past. So, and looking at the guys that I was trialing against in my position, I thought, I'd be up there. There's no doubt I'll get picked for this team. Anyway, we trialed, and the trial passed, and within a couple of days we got called into like interval meeting. So every morning assembly would have notices, and they would say, can these people meet in this class, and this meeting is on at this time, at lunchtime, whatever it was. And I turned up to a meeting, my name was called out, turned up to a meeting, and I sort of rocked up, and in my mind I was thinking, oh great, I'm to be named captain, or I made the team. That was sort of where I was at the time. And turned up, and basically, long story short, is the coach said, sorry fellas, there must have been about 10 of us, and he said, you haven't made the team. And my jaw dropped, and my ego sort of was slightly wounded and dented, and then got into that space of reaction, and was like, went up to the coach, and I was like, what's happened here? Why haven't I made the team? And he sort of said, oh, you're not fit enough. Didn't see commitment. I didn't think you tried very well. And just the guys that got in the team before you were better than you. Just better than you, plain and simple. And at the time, it was pretty hard to take as a 14, 15-year-old away from my parents and my support network. But that was kind of the defining moment, because I realized that I came to this big realization that you can't just walk into anything, that you've always got to you've always got to grow, you've always got to do the work, you've always got to what's that saying, what's that quote, it's like, not rest on your laurels. And it was a big eye opener. It was a big wake up call for me at the time, and it sort of set me off on this journey of getting to work and working, and
I feel like that's in a way like the perfect metaphor in life in general, is this marriage between the divine feminine, which is about being, which is about connection, married with the divine masculine, of actually actioning into, that it's not all about the hustle, but at the same time there needs to be inspired action. And there also needs to be that sense of really kind of like sitting back and really reconnecting to is you really want. Because when things come and knock you off your feet, right, support like that, I'm sure it brings lots of clarity around what you do actually want. Because it interrupts a pattern. Maybe you're in a pattern where you think everything's good, everything's sorted, you're not worried about a thing, and then it comes out of nowhere, and then it makes you stop in your tracks and really reassess like what you want, which is, yeah, I'm sure lots of people can relate to that, and I'm sure it was the last time that
Yeah.
happened.
And, you know, to be, you know, to think back then, it was probably the first time that, you know, up until that point was, you know, my parent did everything, you know, it was kind of, I was in that stage of 14, like didn't have to, yeah, it was kind of like everything was sort of done for me, you know, or didn't have that responsibility, didn't have that urge to take responsibility and start thinking about what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be. And that was sort of, yeah, I suppose it wasn't sort of in that neutral feminine stage of just sort of being quite comfortable and still and not really getting after anything at that point in time. It was just happy just to prod along and yeah. So yeah, it was sort of that awakening moment, yeah. But you did right about the masculine and feminine and yeah. Inspired action. There we go.
So let's fast forward to a moment in time where you...
This is totally unscripted, by the way.
Yeah.
We're just sort of going with it. I thought it was my podcast. Thought it was my podcast, but that's all right. Okay, I got it. And sure, cool.
Yeah, I feel like what an amazing part of your journey was how you seem to over and over fearlessly take leaps when it's not the easy path. And we've spoken about that a lot. And that's not to say that you always have to take the hard route and that there's a badge of honor in it being tough and hard. But, you know, share that moment when you were on the cruise in Japan and you had this inspiration suddenly to not take the easy route and stay in New Zealand, where all your safety was, where all your network was, where everything you'd ever known was, and you felt a calling to go to London. Like, what was the point? Like, what was the point when it became so clear that that was what you wanted?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a bit of a background story to that because, yeah, I mean, I finished university. I'd moved around to like within 3 years. I'd moved to 3 different places. I taught at 2 different. I became a registered teacher, and yeah, as part of graduating, you have to teach within. Or you have to do at least 2 full years of teaching within 4 years of graduating. I also got a scholarship at uni, which meant I had to follow through on that as well and meet that obligation that via the scholarship that I got. So I got to a point after uni where I was sort of like I wanted to move back home and closer to the family, and made a decision that I was just going to go straight into teaching and do my 2 years full there, and then sort of figure out what I wanted to do after that and see how teaching went. When the first 2 years of teaching came up and finished up, and I got registered as a teacher, I was sort of I really at the time I felt really there wasn't a lot of enjoyment with the teaching, and I felt really hemmed in, and yeah, I suppose I was a bit sort of confused as to where. I wouldn't say confused, but I didn't really know what that next step was, you know. So I was in this sort of state of the fork in the road and not really sort of knowing where I wanted to go and where I was heading. And I was sort of open to anything at the time. And I remember getting a scholarship, an email just a random email I used to get sometimes from my father or family, and it said apply for this scholarship to go to New Zealand, to go to Japan and go on this really cool trip and meet lots of other young people from all over the world and come together and talk about issues and interesting things and share culture. And anyway, before going on this trip, I sort of registered and signed up and I didn't pay too much attention to it or pay too much detail to it, but I sort of just put my name into the hat. And at the same time, I was also pondering my next move, which was, at the time I was sort of I had sort of created this picture in my mind of where I thought was best that I was heading, and following this experience, going on this trip, it completely wiped out everything that I had planned or set myself to before going on this trip. So what was sort of a random thing that I just put my name into the hat became this sort of instigator, or this lit flame to go in a totally different direction to what I'd planned. And then, basically within 6-7 weeks of getting back from this trip, I went on this trip for 6 weeks, traveling around all through Japan and Asia. And then, within like 2 months of getting back from that, I was off. But when I think of, the experience was such a special one. I was, people from all over the world, young people like me at the time, and still, of course. But we had 18 to 30-year-olds, people from, delegates, we called them, from countries like Costa Rica, Bahrain, UAE, United Arab Emirates, Japan, of course, Fiji. Shout out to all my brothers and sisters who were part of that trip, who might be listening. And I was inspired. There were some really amazing, incredible people who were my age, who had done some really cool things. And I just felt like I'd been living under a rock, to be honest. The best way to explain it. I felt like my life was quite dull compared to a lot of the other people who were on this trip.
There's all these different possibilities of ways that I get to live my life, and actually just taking a conscious decision to choose what direction.
And that's it, as being around these people where I was like, man, like, this person got these degrees and they've done this job in it, and they've done this, and they've in these positions, and it wasn't about me comparing, but I was inspired by what was possible, and it sort of opened my mind up to different possibilities. So it's pretty cool. 5 years in London. Yeah. London's a cool place. It's cool. Yeah. It does feel like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, it does. And we met 1 year after you being in London.
Correct.
And that was a really interesting time for you as well, because I know that you were kind of getting to a point where you were feeling if, or in fact, it was time for you to move on from London, not long before we met. Is that right?
Yeah, probably something like that.
You were starting to feel like, okay, I've been here for a little bit. I've wetted my taste buds. Okay, I dipped my toe in, and I can say I've done it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, in hindsight, looking back, I probably had expectations of how things should have looked when I was there, and that went off my experiences here in New Zealand. So I'd gone into it, I suppose, in the same sort of dynamic or identity that I had leaving New Zealand, and that's how I saw things. And yeah, much the same way that here I sort of felt like I was living under a rock and not really, yeah, sort of just going through the motion. It did get to 1 year in London where I was starting to think, oh, I think I'm in the wrong place, or there's somewhere better, or I've done all that I wanted to do. And then I met you. I mean, for people, yeah, I mean, I would say like London takes at least 6 months to a year to actually probably settle into, and I had spent pretty much that whole time, the first year, actually just settling into a new place and getting my head around it, and then getting to the end of that 1 year doing all the hard work and being like, okay, I'm ready to go now. I've done what I needed to do. But then, then you realize you just scratching the surface really.
And so, was it quite easy for you to adapt to that? Because I know it's like you can sometimes set your mind on something and you're like, okay, no, I'm done, I'm over this. Like, how was that reframing in your mind from saying, I think I've done everything, to then being like open to saying and just seeing what unfolds? Yeah,
it's I've had all these moments, like, in 34 years where where things have happened, and or people have come into my life to for a reason, to redirect me, or to things have happened, situations, circumstances, scenarios, whatever it might be, and I suppose I had a moment similar to the coach experience with my coach in high school. And I had a close friend who, we used to talk and chat, and she was a local, and born Irish blood, but had lived in London for years and had a family. And the sort of the crunch moment came when, like, she pretty much just threw it right back in my face, like in a very loving way. I mean that in the nicest way possible, but I was sort of in that state of I'm ready to go, I'm ready to pack my bags, I think I'm ready to move on, and sort of laying out all my reasons for doing so, and that I'd made up my mind, and by throwing it in my face, it was kind of like, well, you haven't really done much at all, like you're hardly scratching the surface, you haven't even really done anything really. And it's one of those moments where it's sort of like you get caught off guard, and in a way it kind of, in a really nice way, it kind of challenges all the ideals and stuff that you have at that point in time. It makes you sort of ask those questions, have I done enough? Have I really gone in deep into this experience, and have I allowed myself to fully receive and to fully give? And as a result of that experience, I just started to ask more questions and started to sort of open, like sort of almost like letting go and surrender more, and just allowing myself just to ride the flow of the unknown, and getting out of and creating more space for new possibilities and new things to come into my life, not all by choice, like not all directly by choice, like just being cool with whatever comes up, knowing that letting go of control.
Because London has that about it, there's always a sense of anything's possible. And as crazy as London is, there is nothing that, I mean, it's just insane how you can just create anything from nothing in a moment. Your paths can cross with one person and that can just change everything. And at the same time, you feel incredibly free because you can do whatever you want, embarrass yourself or whatever, because you won't see that person again. You won't see the same crowd again. So it can feel incredibly freeing as well. Like, no one's going to remember you. No one knows your name. And at the same time, if you have an ego, it will totally crush it. Because it's like, who the F do you think you are? In this world, you are no one. And so it's got this like double sword, and it's almost like how you want to play with it.
Yeah, it's no, you did right. I always say it like a big party going on, and you don't want to be the guy spoiling the party. You just got to go along with what's happening and just allow it to take you somewhere. Whatever's going on. There's so much going on, and yeah, and also, when I say take you somewhere, like it's really as we came to really discover is the importance of actually setting aim to things, like setting yourself to things. Otherwise, you in a place having focus.
Because there is limitless distraction
Yeah.
at all hours of the day and night.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you don't, I mean, without that focus, you can get caught in the wave of all the, like you said, distraction and things going on. So that's London. But I think back to what I said about people coming into having those people. It's tough at the time because you sort of have this. Your world is challenged. The world that you've got made up in your mind about the things that you believe in or the things that you're doing, and all of a sudden it comes sort of, I don't say crashing down, but you're all of a sudden, being attacked in a good way, like but you've been challenged, and not in a confrontational way, if that makes sense.
And I do feel that like the older I get, the more weary I am of the energy of someone who's challenging me, because there's a very specific feeling to a truthful, authentic challenge versus overpowering, egoistic challenge. Because for some people, for example, maybe they are very attached to London, for example, could be anything. So the fact that you're saying this isn't the place for me could trigger something in that person to feel like it means that it's a direct challenge on them.
Yeah.
So it's really important when before, in my 20s, I wasn't so aware of the texture of someone's challenge, but for sure now I welcome challenge if it's authentic, if it really is authentic, not just any challenge to just like knock me off my center. No, but a challenge that is authentic, that's powerful.
It's coming from sort of like a heart space, like and a caring sort of supportive sort of space, as opposed to sort of testing you to see what you're made of without sort of that, how do we say, without that feeling of support, like you're just sort of being left to yourself and being challenged in a way. But I see them as angel, like I see those people as sort of being my angels in a way, like people that sort of indirectly kind of been there for you and kind of directed you when need being, you know, like when you're sort of got your back against the wall or not really sure, or and just need that little nudge, or just that little bit of assurance that you're sort of needing at that point in time, and just saying, hey, like, you know, it's cool, like, I'm just, everything's cool, just keep doing, like, trust in where you are, don't panic, and get to work, and you know, and that makes sense. Have you had anyone, like, who are your angels? I call them angels. You might call them something different.
No, I mean, whole life has been one big guidance, one after the other, after the other, after the other. So, yeah, I mean, for me, mine stems back from very early childhood. Always feeling very guided. I mean, there's certain things in life where it's like, I look back and I think, wow, like, if that thing didn't happen, then you wouldn't have gone here, and my sister wouldn't have met this person, and that turned out to be her husband, and now they've got 4 children, and there's certain things where you're like, I would take all that rubbish again if it meant that we still went on that journey. And I feel that I've always been very stubborn, so challenge is not always something that I've taken. I'd love to challenge. I remember my first housemaster, I also went to boarding school. My second housemaster, he'd only known my sister, who is the most beautiful, kind, calm, respectful, peaceful, neutral person. And so I think he was expecting another one of her when I rocked up to move to the senior houses. And I was everything but. And
So he had her mask ready for you.
Yeah. And I show up, and he challenges with me with something. And he's basically underlying saying that I'm not telling the truth. And for me, truth has always been like a strong core value. For someone to challenge that I'm not, like, that I'm not telling the truth, I would knock that down. And then it got to a point where, bless him, he came into my room, and he sat down on the bed and he said to my mum, and I really respect him for that, because he didn't have to do that. But, you know, that was me at age 15. And I was always had this, like, certain values that I really valued, that I was not going to accept, because someone of authority or someone was challenging me. I was not going to just let it go and say, oh, okay, whatever, maybe, you know, okay, so I did lie. If I didn't lie, it was like to the death. No. Learning to be not so stubborn with everything, but I'm still fiery with my values and my beliefs. I am, definitely. In fact, probably more so now.
Did you ever, I mean, I think back to when I was at uni and like younger, and I used to get all my mates to be like, you know, they'd made up their mind, and I was sort of like, no, I'm good. And always, I used to get people to say, you're so stubborn, and I would always say, no, I just know what I want and what I don't want.
I believe stubbornness is another one where, as long as it's not closing you off from expanding, from opening you up to exploring something in a new level and a new life, then that is awesome. I feel like stubbornness has got like a bad rep. Because people love people who are just so accommodating and who are just so willing to please and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's, you know, an expression is like, that's such like a wet person, got no backbone. And I would rather be around people, you know, who are not going to say everything to please me.
Yeah.
We all have blind spots. We all need someone who's not going to be afraid to tell you what they see And even if it doesn't resonate for you, because there's that relationship of trust and love between you, you can at least take a moment to actually sit with it and observe it and see if it is true for you or not. But I feel like stubbornness is an amazing attribute, because you don't take anything that's said as a given. You want to explore it.
And that's probably the best way, of looking at it. Like you, and yeah, see it like being an eagle. Like you have to step outside of your own perspective, but through asking questions and getting curious, you kind of fly above your own perspective and sort of see what else is out there, and then be like, well, I quite like what I've been doing, and I'm quite confident in the way I feel and the way my beliefs and whatnot, the way I'm doing things, and I'm going to make this decision based on on this, right? But
What attributes inspired you when you were growing up? Like you watch adults, and there's always some attributes that inspire. What was that for you?
Humility's been a big one for me. It's being really humble about things, and it's really important. Humility, other attributes, doing, like honoring your word, like doing what you say you're going to do. What other attributes? It's sort of like honor, respect, but sort of like self-pride, like self-respect, like having immense pride in who you are, and being and showing that, and not being afraid to show that to the world, and that that add to that, honoring your word and following through and taking action and staying humble. Selflessness, attributes like being, like thinking of others and being kind and caring. Service is obviously a big one. Those are probably the biggest ones that I admire in people, and particularly one that's come up as I've sort of as I've gotten older, is people who are not afraid to take risks, and not afraid to go to do something different, to stand out, to be in the arena, or to be in the hot seat, who don't run away or don't shy away from that, who stand up for what they believe in, and and stay true to who they are. I used to watch a lot of movies, like a lot of those sort of hero movies, and that was kind of our upbringing in the 90s. So it was kind of so a lot of those sort of stoic values and characteristics have sort of shown through. But it was amazing. It was an amazing childhood, and we had so much cool. There was so much cool stuff going out. It was sort of around there, like Arnie and Sylvester, and who are some other? Well, Dr. Phil, we can easily put him there and say, well, when we're looking at humility and we're looking at service and kindness and compassion and all those things, then he fits the bill. So, there's something in everything. Go on. No, I was talking about. So there's two Dr. Phils, right? There's a talk show host, and then of course we got our Philly king sitting on the throne with his. Yes. Oh, is it? It is the doctor. No, sorry. No. Okay. Maybe I got that one wrong. Uncle Phil, not Dr. Phil. Okay, so yeah, when you're giving out good advice, and you can be Dr. Phil, maybe Oprah or Ricky Lake or someone like that. But tell me, what is your defining moment? Do you have one? Do you have one where like that sort of shook up the cage and sort of took you on a totally different, massive awakening?
I wouldn't say yes and no. Yes, there is definitely a massive pivot, which was when I first did. I also, that was maybe 4 years ago. No, even longer. We've been married for it would have been maybe 6 years ago. 6 years ago. And I was definitely already on a path of self-discovery, of self-awareness. And, I've been going to seminars since I was 22. So for a long time before I even got to sit in ceremony, I was very much like diving into that world. And what it totally changed everything for me, because for the first time I didn't just know something with like intellectual knowledge, I'd experienced it. And that was a massive turning point, because for me, I'd always grown up kind of like in the back of my mind, like really believing in magic, but I'd never had a space where that was even safe to even express as a child. And so what ayahuasca allowed me to do was actually reconnect with the truth of magic in life. The fact that our words, our spells, that everything we speak into existence holds a vibration, holds a frequency, and we can literally create anything. That is truth. And when you're studying it, like as we did with NLP and all these other journeys that we've gone on together, it's like, yeah, I know that. And I go back to my daily routine and I forget all about it, and I don't do any of what I know intellectually. When you've experienced it, it shakes you up on such a level. Like I was out for probably a week after I got back from that journey. I didn't want to see anyone, I didn't want to go out, I didn't want to be in any crowds. I was super sensitive. I just literally felt like I'd been ripped from the mother's womb, and I was just like, I'm really fragile right now, I just really need to be with myself. And that changed everything, and continued to change everything. Because I feel like when you're very determined and you're very headstrong, you can push through a lot, but your body holds on to all of the mama, like all of the heart, it holds on to, even if your mind is like, no, don't feel hurt anymore, I'm over it. It really showed me how much I wasn't aware of what an impact my whole nervous system and body was having, when I was always bypassing it with me being headstrong and just not giving it the space, just moving past it. And it was like my body was like, whoa, like I need to process this. I need to be with this.
The like an out of body experience, like you kind of like drift, like your spirit drifts above your body, and you're kind of looking down, and you can kind of see everything that you're doing and all the patterns and all the,
I literally thought, like, so I first was extremely nervous. I'd never experimented in any drugs. Even when I was with a partner previously who smoked weed every night, I never touched it. For me, I grew up with, around alcoholism, so I was very strict on myself. I was petrified with how my body was going to handle it. I was really nervous. And so because of this, because I felt such strictness in my life.
Mm.
I was petrified when I couldn't stay in control. I was moving around. I was on my tummy. I was on my back, and I just felt like my skin was burning, and I was like, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. Like, I can't. And I had the most beautiful woman who really soothed me, and she allowed me to help me to know that I was safe, so I could let go into the journey. And the moment I let go of needing to control, it was like the most insane. It was like I was in this Asterix cartoon, and it was like all these nutty spiral sacred geometric shapes around me, and it was like bright fuchsia pink and orange and turquoise, and everything was so strong. And I remember being like a speck, and I remember being so I remember I couldn't stop laughing at the fact that we had bodies. I thought it was the most hysterical thing, and I was like, I remember thinking, oh wait, I've died. Oh, Moeahu. I want to see Moeahu again. And then someone saying, you're always connected. But I remember like just feeling like I literally died, and I was like, but I want to see Moeahu again. And they were like, no, like, you're always connected.
Yeah, I almost got flattened at the tube station the next day when I went to pick you up. I'm like standing there, hey, big rugby tackle.
Yeah. So that's one in a little snippet.
Yeah, and you spent 12 years in London, so when I'm like, yeah, when we talk about like the element of control and like needing to have everything, like to know what's going on and to be in that sense of control, it can definitely relate to that, having spent, you know, in our time in London. Like, it's kind of I've always been interested in. I haven't really had too many friends that have come back from overseas. I've got a couple actually, but as to everyone, I'm interested to hear other people's experiences of coming back. Because as we know, like something that I really struggled with coming back was like going through crazy anxiety. Like, you know, as we talk about endless possibilities, there's like endless possibilities in your day that can happen. Like you know, from the moment you leave your door to the moment you get home, there's like so much stuff going on, and threats and hazards and all sorts of stuff, and it can alter everything in your body and your mind. Like you're just on high alert all the time, even when it doesn't seem like you are. You are the whole time. And you know, whether that's your trip from your home to the tube station, or you know, this is something going around every corner, and I don't mean crime. It's just a really happening, full-on place, and where the possibilities of all things, you know, plenty of things happening is just high.
Do you know what's interesting? I heard this the other day, that apparently our nervous system is only supposed to deal with ever meeting 500 people in our life. And it makes sense when you think of how we're tribal beings, and how, you know, the ideal number, I think they set it at around 150 at the most. And so if you think about your nervous system, and this idea that you would only ever meet 150 people, 500 people max, how your nervous system is actually calm and relaxed, because you're not constantly coming across different people's energies and erraticness.
Yeah.
And you just think, well, you go past way more than 500 people in London a day, if you take the tube.
Yeah, from like the home to the tube station, or to the corner of your street. Yeah.
So it makes sense why you end up getting wired without realizing that you're wired.
Yeah, just being in that fight and flight mode. And yeah, and it just becomes a normal process within your body. Like you, after a while, you don't even notice you're on until you kind of step out. And for us, we would go away, you know, weekend trips, and we would just, our whole body, everything would just sort of feel like it was shutting down. Like, we do a weekend trip away to Portugal, or like, just get away, and it's like you're in a new environment, and those threats aren't as high dialed as they were. Okay, so we can start we can start relaxing and letting our guard down a bit more, and then all of a sudden, it's sort of, but definitely found that going from like London to New Zealand, back here to Aotearoa is that change, from being on high alert to all of a sudden having so much space and calmness, I suppose. Like everything was very
Just a lot slower.
a lot slower. Yeah.
If you want to go out, you really need to plan. Spontaneity is not your friend. I swear. Like years. We never made it to anything because we so relied on spontaneity. And it was like, this one band will come this 1 month of the year and you missed it again.
You gotta do the work.
You gotta do a bit of work.
You gotta do a bit of work. You gotta put in a bit of effort rather than sort of just letting your external environment carry you and be the lead instigator in the fun, or the adventure, I suppose. And there's nothing wrong. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You find your own fun, but definitely a big adjustment. I mean, I was just thinking about going from that transition. Like, how do you go from like having that realization to all of a sudden, where do you start? Like going from, okay, this is the way I'm doing, like, this is the way things are. They don't align anywhere near where I want to go or what I want to be, or align with the direction that I want to go in my life. Like, like, did you have like a moment where you're like, okay, I'm going to start like step by step and start sort of, taking it as a gradual thing, or was it sort of?
What do you mean after the first ayahuasca?
Yeah.
I started work on it. First of all, it really showed me my healing path, in terms of not only my own healing path, but the fact that my journey was to be service to others in that energetic realm. And so I got straight into doing my Reiki training straight away, did it in Covent Garden. And I really struggled. I went into ceremony after that, basically once every 6 months, which I wouldn't recommend, but it just goes to show like how out of alignment life was, that I really needed to be in that environment often. And it was this massive, it's like this massive purging of letting everything go. And that helped me, you know what it did? It helped me to be a lot more courageous. It helped me to be a lot more willing to step into the unknown. Whereas before, because I was so, I had created so much control in my life that I was not willing to take a jump unless I could see the next step. So that was massive, just having that experience of being like, I know I'm going to be held. And I remember being shown like this image, grandmother Aya, and who was, for those of you who haven't done plant medicine, when I say grandmother Aya or mother Aya, it's just, the plant spirit mother. And she literally showed me someone, or me, hanging on the edge of a cliff, holding on to dear life with my fingertips.
Wow.
And she was there with her big, beautiful, soft hands, way below me, and she was saying, it cannot catch you, unless you're willing to fall. I cannot hold you unless you're willing to drop and let go of the control. And that always stuck with me. Of this, I believe in
wow, that's powerful.
Like, I believe it, and yet I'm so scared. I'm so scared to take the leap. I'm so scared to let go, because a lot of it was, we all have stuff in our past. My childhood was so chaotic that I was so rigid with myself from the age, basically I was in boarding school from 10. And so from then I was just controlling and rigid towards myself, because that was how I created my own sense of safety. But it was suffocating, and it was very, it's not
quite
living.
Restricting in a way.
Very.
Yeah.
No, I went to the gym every single day from the age of 14. But I was like so hard on myself. So that opened me up to be like, you need to look under control if you want to experience living magic, and if you want to experience what it feels like to manifest and live abundantly.
And it's something that a lot of people can relate to, is, that sense of, getting to that point of when wanting to make changes and knowing something's not in alignment, and, jumping and letting go of that. It's such a powerful way of putting it, that you see it around, like holding on, and then just let go. But, like whether it's leaving a job that doesn't serve, or it's leaving a relationship, or an environment, or getting out of comfort zone, doing new things, like, it's that whole element of just letting go and surrendering, and trusting that you're going to be safe, like, when doing so.
And the safety doesn't come instantly. It's not like you say it and you do it and instantly it's there. No, like, there's a lot of trust that comes in divine timing, that it will arrive in that divine timing. Like, I had that in London. I was making a massive transition. I finally, decided what felt more in alignment. That's the thing though, isn't it? It's like, there's never this one big leap. Like, I didn't just go from what I was doing before to then suddenly teaching Reiki, teacher training. It's like, there was a gradual stepping of little steps that felt a little bit lighter. So I was a personal trainer, and then I was at a studio that felt very much aligned with empowering women and empowering bodies in a movement that is kind. And then I had to leave my known to step into an unknown, which was doing what felt more in alignment, but it was a 0-hour contract. And in London, that's nuts. I mean, I was working for a studio, and they were like, well, some days you might have 3, some days you might have 9. We'll just see how it goes. But I just knew it was more in the direction I wanted, that I was willing to take that risk. And then from that, I got to go open up a studio in Capri, where I absolutely was one of the most memorable times, and we had a beautiful time there together. And then I got home, and I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to create money right now, because I've just left all my regular clients for like nearly 2 months, so they've all probably found other trainers, and that's the thing in London, like, everything moves fast.
Yeah.
And then an opportunity presented itself to open, a health and wellbeing spa in Knightsbridge.
Yeah, I mean, I was.
You can't plan those kind of things. It's like,
I remember that time, because I was like, man, this woman is killing it, and I was sort of there, and you were like, come back from this experience, and it was like, I just noticed all these little sort of subtle changes that you were making, and then all of a sudden it was, at the time for me, I was sort of on my own journey, but I was also like, you were full force ahead, like you were just, and that's pretty cool, like pretty amazing, like, yeah, it's so incredible just from that one experience.
yeah.
I mean, obviously you had a lot of ceremonies, but just from that sort of awakening or realization that you were like, wow, like it's got to happen, like I got to do something.
Yeah.
and then being patient and being calm and staying trusting, like having that faith
Yeah.
to keep moving in a new direction, right? Where everything that you had built up and created was sort of was resisting that shift as well. Like, because we always want to go back to what we know and what feels comfortable. How is that? I mean, we haven't talked about it. Like, yeah, but we haven't gone into detail about some of it. We have in a way, but yeah, you're hearing it first.
It was scary. I mean, I had worked all throughout university. I was in retail when I was in London, and I got to a point where I just felt like I finished university. I felt like it was the biggest rip-off of my whole life. Okay, I finished a degree, and I ended up going. My first job was a headhunter, and I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated it so much. I remember, I'd say it was probably like first weekend, and I go on lunch and I call Rose, my best friend, and I just burst into tears. And I was like, is this supposed to suck this much? Is this normal that you hate your work this much? Is this normal? Because I knew that she'd never went to university, she'd always worked, and she'd always been in like a very corporate, she was in an insane workforce, right? And so I was like, this was normal. Anyway, and it was just so deeply unhappy that I was just like, screw it, I'm going back to retail. Like, I could not. I used to wake up and just the thought of going to work filled me with so much dread. In fact, some of the time I would get halfway to the tube station and just want to turn back. I hated it. Anyway, so I was in retail and I was doing skincare and I was, decided that I was going to be a makeup artist, and then I was, because I always felt like there was a sense of creativity, so I was doing makeup. And then it got to a point where I was just like, oh, I'm so over this. Because even as a makeup artist, you're working in retail because makeup is so, you may be on set for film, but then when the film is done, it's done. Or you might be on a fashion shoot, but that's it's periodical, it's not all the time. So I got to a point where I was just so, like, will I ever get out? Will I ever get out of retail? And it got to a point where I was just like, fuck, this is not what I imagined my life to be. And so it gave me the courage to take a leap when I feel like if I hadn't have done that, I may not have done the leap that I took.
And we can definitely relate to that, both of us. Is like, you can only tolerate so much, like your things just build up until you get what you tolerate, and then eventually I wouldn't say you're left with the only option, but you just,
body is screaming at you.
Yeah.
And that's signing enough.
Yeah.
If you're having those moments, those feelings where you wake up in the morning and you're filled with dread, that's enough. That's enough,
Yeah.
It's not about, and I feel like for people who are very headstrong, like we both are very headstrong, we can tend to stay in things for way longer than is actually needed. Because they're like, no, but we can do it. We can do it.
We can change. We can change the situation. We can. Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah.
And then it gets to a point where it's like, is my energy really valuable?
I won't accept anything but a win. Loss is not an answer.
And then you're rolled up on the floor crying and you're like, I'll take it. I tap out.
Yeah. But that's where angels are amazing, because they kind of just come by you and they put their hand on your shoulder and they say, hey, like, everything's good.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Everything, like, just let it be, let it go.
Let it go.
And 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 yeah, man, that's powerful. That's powerful. I've had a lot of people like that. They've sort of, like you said, we're both really headstrong, but yeah, like really, and so grateful for those people that have done that for me, and sort of taken the effort, like made the effort, and got out of their way to do so. Where a lot of those people could have easily just kept to themselves and kept doing what they were doing or stuck to their own business, but just to get out of their way, like, man, just really grateful and appreciative. Yeah. And even like my rugby coach at school, like I see that as being the same. Like it was kind of like tough love, like, but I admired the fact that I was told the truth. Like there was no filter, there was no.
This is powerful.
Yeah.
We just become the world's become too sensitized to the power of truth. Truth allows you to grow.
Yeah.
When it's authentic, when it's coming from that loving heart.
And that's right. So there's like one person, there's like a scenario of like truth as in, so you're too unfit, you're too overweight, you're not committed. There's that truth, and then there's the truth of everything. Like everything is, just let it go. Everything's cool.
Everything's fine.
Like you're safe. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be. Like it's not your battle to fight or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And I see so many correlation between the two. Very different style, but truth is what it comes back to. Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, we didn't plan that.
Can you see a flash?
No. Okay, we're just going to talk anyway. Well, powerful stuff.
Yeah, I feel like that's lots of living nuggets. It's always unfolding. Things are always unfolding. If you can live from that premise of knowing that things are always happening for you, that you are guided, and to live with the premise of know when it's time to let go, save yourself so much pain and necessary struggle, and to match the divine feminine with the divine masculine and know when it's time to put in the work and when it's time to do.
And time to listen, like be open to new ways.
Yeah,
different perspectives. Yeah.
Definitely.
Especially the stubborn sort of big-headed, no, not big-headed, well, they're strong-headed. Sure, I do have a big head. But, strong-headed. Yeah.
I feel complete. I personally don't have anything else to share. Anything else you want to touch on before?
No, but I do want to say that, like, there's obviously a lot going on in the world right now, and we are all being tested in all areas of our lives, like our beliefs, the structures that we have built up for ourselves have all sort of been, like I was saying at the beginning with my rugby coaches, they've all been, what's a good way of saying it? What's the right way of saying it? Probably, there is no right way, but, like hacked at, and they've been challenged and they've been pushed. The structures have been pushed. And so, definitely relatable to everything that's going on in the world in terms of letting go and picking your battles and finding that balance between the masculine and the feminine, yeah, we went up to so we're living in Auckland, but when we went up to Mount Eden the other day, that was pretty powerful. We went up to Mount Eden. We hadn't been there. I hadn't been there in like 6 months or something, but we went up to the top, and a cool thing, we agreed that we were saying that when you're in your everyday sort of business and you're going about your day, you're sort of on the ground, moving around. But then there's something really powerful about being up high. So when you get up onto high ground, as Mount Eden is you get to see, you're almost out of the traffic, out of the everyday thing, and you get a different perspective. So that was really powerful, sort of above the noise, should I say? Probably a good way of saying it. So yeah.
Sending so much love. This is Morning Week's podcast. I thought it would be nice for you guys to actually, fun for us to just speak a little bit deeper. Nice for you guys to have that intro into your host.
It's been fun. We're going to put some more out.
Yes.
And we'll see where it takes us.
Yes. And Morning is going to be doing, we'll do some more together.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff I'd love to share on my own podcast.
Yes.
But thank you for having me on your podcast.
Thank you for being here. Love you always. Appreciate you.